Hey, good morning and welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. I am Steve, and it is Saturday, May 1st, 2021. How did we get to the month of May? Holy cow. And I don't know that cows are really holy, but whatever. If you are joining live, welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. Feel free to say hello in the chat so we know that you are here, and do my best to say hello. There's Jay Zettervall's here, which doesn't necessarily surprise me. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Good morning, Brenda. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Amy. People are tuning in, signing on. And if you end up joining later, if you come back and watch this later on the recording, or as I call it, syndicated reruns, feel free to make your comments as well, because we still like to see who tunes in. It's interesting to me. We actually have Coffee Breaks with Steve has over 200 followers, and typically only a handful of you join in live on Saturday mornings, and I do appreciate that. The core group, the regulars who come in here. But surprisingly enough, there are a number of people who tune in later on. I'll get comments from people who have gone back and watched the programs later on, and so I appreciate that as well. So if you're tuning in later, please do make your comments so we know that you were here. Hello, Carla. Did I say hello to Carla already? If not, hello, Carla. Hello, Corey Ann. It's just good to see everybody out here. It's good to have you with us on this first day of May. And talk about a few things that are coming up this week. First of all, today is May Day, right? Do you remember that when I was growing up in elementary school, we would do the maypole, and there would be all these things, flowers and stuff, and it was to celebrate kind of I think the official real start of sort of the spring season when you get into May. It's really not a national holiday. It's observed in different ways in different locations. The only place that I was able to find that it is an official holiday around flowers and that type of thing is in Hawaii. It's an actual state holiday. It's Hawaiian Lei Day in Hawaii, and they celebrate on May 1st. And then, of course, May 1st is also in many parts of the world is also a Labor Day celebrated in a lot of countries. And some of that ties back to revolutions in places like Russia in the early part of the 20th century and the rise of the workers and that type of thing. Hello, Scott. Hello, Kathy Glavin. Hello, Kathy Garlick. Good to see you all here and tuned in today. Let's see what else is. Oh, Kentucky Derby Day is today. It's kind of strange because I don't remember. Did they end up not running the Kentucky Derby last year when COVID got underway? I've kind of lost track of what didn't happen, got canceled last year. But today is Kentucky Derby, and it will be taking place. So grab your mint juleps, put on your fancy hat. What do they call them? They're not hats. They do them in England too. They're I can't remember the name. Somebody will put it out here. And hi, Jared. Is it just me, or is 2021 trying to make up for 2020 dragging on forever? I think so, Jared. It feels like this year, although I was actually surprised in 2020 at times, it felt like spring in 2020 lasted forever. We would make jokes about, okay, well, we're in year 10 of March. And it felt like March and April went on forever, and even into May. And then the rest of the year went by pretty quickly for me. But this year is taking off like it's trying to make up for lost time. Yes. The 3rd of May, World Press Freedom Day. World Press Freedom Day. It's an international day promoting free press around the world, and it's actually promoted by the United Nations. It's a UNESCO-sponsored and recognized day, May 3rd. May 4th. You know what May 4th is, right? May 4th, May the 4th be with you. It's Star Wars Day. And by the way, if you were tuning in and you're here for the first time, make sure you say hello and let us know how you found out about us. I know we've got some visitors today. Hi, I see Suzanne Hayes on here. Hello, Suzanne. And if I haven't said hello to you yet, I'll try to catch your name and say hi. But yeah, so May 4th, May the 4th be with you. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo. So I get ready with your tacos and your tequila and whatever else you do to celebrate. May 6th, National Nurses Day. You know, I love the fact that we have these days that we celebrate heroes in our world and in our lives. Nurses Day, National Doctors Day, Teachers Day, Mother's Day is coming up. Definitely heroes there. And a part of me goes, it's great that we have these because it puts a spotlight. And another part of me goes, do we need a special day, or should we really just be celebrating all of these people every single day and saying thank you? But I think it is good that there are some specific days, specific weeks to do that. May 6th is National Nurses Day, and I think we go into National Nurses Week as well. May even be National Nurses Month. I'm not positive. May 7th is the National Day of Prayer. It's actually recognized. I think it was an act of Congress that recognized that. There's typically a presidential proclamation. See a lot of things going on around that in local communities as well as on national days. There are often national prayer breakfasts and a variety of things, regardless of what your faith path is. In fact, I know here in this area, our county supervisor is actually sponsoring a community event, and it's a multicultural, multi-religion event where there are going to be speakers from a variety of religious groups and faiths in the area. There are also some birthdays. Tomorrow is Jameson. My grandson Jameson's birthday is tomorrow, May 2nd. Jameson and Remy are actually here this weekend. I was going to call Jameson into the room, but I think they're playing. So I'll just say happy birthday, Jameson. He's going to be 10 years old. That makes me feel old. Then Nick Garlick. I don't know that Nick is on here, but Nick Garlick, who is my nephew, Nick is tuned in here when he can. Sometimes he's working and he can't tune in. Is celebrating his birthday as well this next week on the 5th. And then that's right, isn't it, Kathy? That Nick's birthday is the 5th and your guys' anniversary is the 6th of May. Am I getting that correct? Kathy Glavin, that's right. Okay, Scott and Kathy, thank you. 23rd anniversary. Thank you for putting that one out there. I try to pick up on all of these, and I look at my calendars in various places, and sometimes I've got those dates carrying through, and sometimes I don't. So happy anniversary to Scott and Kathy. Happy anniversary to Rod and the other Kathy. Happy birthday, Nick Garlick. Happy birthday, Jameson. If you got a special day, and Jerry and Jay's first anniversary is tomorrow. Yeah, I should have remembered that because I Zoom attended your wedding when that occurred a year ago. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. All right. Wow. A lot of stuff coming up. If I missed any others, put them out here on the comments on the chat. We want to celebrate with you and have all those special days recognized. May is a busy month when it comes to special days, isn't it? Seems to be a popular time. And good meowing and happy Catter Day. Yes, Kim. Does Kim out? There's Kim. Okay. Good morning, Kim. Thank you for joining. That's all right. I'm glad you're here. You don't have to apologize for tuning in a little bit late. All right. We're going to talk today. This topic has been on my mind and in my heart for a while, and I've really struggled with it to some degree. So that's why I'm drinking my coffee again. Because I wanted to approach this topic of dealing with and living beyond trauma and tragedy, but I didn't want it to be heavy. It's kind of hard not to have it be serious, right? We're not going to make jokes about it. But I didn't want it to be kind of a downer. The idea here is not to dredge up things that cause people to feel more frustrated, more helpless, less empowered. It's really to talk about the realities of trauma and tragedy in life. And part of it came to mind because we all face them in one way or another. We all face those events in our lives, and it's not any one thing. It can be a single momentary spur of the moment event. It can be a thing that happens in a split second, an accident, a tragedy that hits. And in the next minute, you're past that moment, but you're still dealing with the after effects of the tragedy, of the trauma, of that experience. There are others that go on that the elements of the trauma are not something that happen in a single moment. They are something that happens over time, that happens in over a life cycle of some type. There is elements of abuse. There are elements of of dealing with someone who's going through an extended illness, that you don't just deal with it in one moment and then go by. But the bottom line is, no matter what those events are, and here's another thing, sorry, I'm interrupting myself with this. One person's trauma and tragedy may be something that someone else would go, that not that big a deal for me, right? Someone may deal with a situation in life that for them was not traumatic, but for someone else, the same situation might be. And there are things that don't necessarily seem traumatic, but they can bring stress. They can bring momentary stress. They can bring PTSD. There are things like going through a major job transition. A lot of people over this last year, because of the impacts of COVID, lost jobs, and income was affected. And the stress that goes with that can be extremely traumatic, and it can bring tragedy. There are situations that go even with changes in a relationship, going through a divorce, having a baby, things that in many ways, even we think about as bringing some sense of accomplishment or joy, starting a new job. I went through a job change this last year, and while it's been fantastic, it also has its own stressors when you're trying to get used to a new situation. Someone else may take some of those events in life and really deal with them pretty easily. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that regardless of what someone else might be dealing with, what we're dealing with personally, we're dealing with, okay? Pure and simple. And I'm going to talk to you about some resources. Look, I'm not an expert. I've said that before on some of the topics that we bring up here. I'm not an expert, and I don't have all the answers. We're not going to walk away and there are easy solutions and answers to everything. But I think that there is inspiration that we can gain. I'm going to introduce my guests today and introduce this couple. We're really going to be talking a lot to Jerry, but you know the names if you tune into Coffee Breaks with Steve, because they are regulars here. But I've known Jay and Jerry Zetterval for more years than I think any of the three of us probably want to talk about. We went to high school together, and their stories individually are interesting, and the things that they've gone through. And there are a variety of things in both of their lives, even in recent years, that we could talk about in regard to trauma and tragedy. But there was a specific thing that I approached them about that I wanted to talk to them about. So I'm going to bring Jay and Jerry in and let you've seen the names, but I want to let you meet them in person and get used to seeing them and hearing them. So Jay and Jerry, thanks for being here. It's good to have you both here with us.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's been a few minutes, and we do go back. We have a history together that goes back into the 70s. I mean, we were in high school together, overlapping. Jerry came in a little bit later. Jay and I were there for a period of time. We were involved in things together. We were involved in choir. We were involved in some of the stage musicals together. And so we had interaction. Yeah. And yet, there were things, I mean, I remember, Jerry, we're going to talk about this a little bit, but I remember when you went through the specific trauma, the specific incident that I wanted to ask you to share a little bit about with us today. And I guess the easiest way to do it, rather than, leaving this out there and people going, what are we talking about, is, and look, I see Christy Barnes-Knox is here today. Hi, Christy. It's good to see you. Kathy McCormick is on here. Hi, Kathy. I'm trying to catch people and say hi. I'm not going to interrupt our story to do that. So if I miss saying hi to you, please forgive me. But let's just start, Jerry, from your perspective. Talk to us a little bit about the night of March 31st, 1975, and what happened.
Well, I'm going to go back just a few months before
that. Feel free. You may feel free.
In December of 1973 is when I met you, because that is when I started going to John Adams High School. I had moved to Portland for two reasons. One, to help my sister. She had just had a baby, and she was working a full-time job, and she needed help. That was excuse number one. The excuse number two is I was having a hard time at home. I was raised in an alcoholic home, and I was the one that was easiest to attack because I responded, whereas other members of my family would very quickly go, "You may be right, Dad." And everything was fine. I'd argue the point. So in 73, I go to Marshfield. That was my old high school. I moved to John Adams, met these two lovely guys that have been my friends. Jay, throughout the years, just one of my best buddies. And I started working at Taco Time in North Portland. And I have to keep this really careful because my boss from back then is listening to this. So if I say it wrong,
she'll keep you honest. She's gonna keep you honest.
She and my brother both are on, so they'll both keep me honest. It was the end of spring break. Nancy, my boss, and I had gone down to Coos Bay to visit my family. We came back that day before, and we go to work the next day, and everything's wonderful until we go to close the restaurant that night. And a gentleman comes up to the window and starts panicking. Well, at this point he was.
There's a doubt. Okay.
He starts pounding on the door that he wants in. And there were three of us working. The other gal that worked with me had the till in her hand, and she's going to the back to put the money away. And the gentleman that's working with me, who I use loosely because he was 15 years old, Tony, he was there with us too. And we told the guy, we were closed. The food was gone. We couldn't do anything. And so we thought he left. Tony goes out to dump the garbage and comes back in, and the guy has a gun to his head, to Tony's head, and wants all the money. Well, by that time, we had a drop safe, and we had dropped all the money. We had no access to it. And when the guy came in, the other gal, Diane, jumped over the counter and ran out the door. But I was worried about Tony. I earned every blonde hair I have. I wasn't smart enough to jump over the counter. I was worried about Tony. And when Robert decided that nothing was going to come of this, he took me instead. He led me out to his car and shoved me into the car. And I saw somebody in the house behind our restaurant. And I was crying loudly and hoping the person would see, which I later found out was a friend of the guy who was kidnapping me. And so we drove around for a while. He took me to a vacant parking lot, and basically that's where I was raped. And I think it was like about 1 o'clock in the morning, he decided we could move on. It was 10, I believe, when he showed up at the restaurant. That's usually when we closed. So he went ahead and started driving around again. We found a park that was deserted. The only thing in this park was the backstop from a baseball diamond. And so we're walking out in the middle of the park. And while my back is turned, he proceeds to start shooting me. He decided he didn't need me around to identify him. And back then, I don't believe DNA and all that was as prevalent in 75, which was the year this happened. March 31st, 1975.
When you were 18.
And I was 18.
Yeah, just turned.
Just turned, that's true. And from there, I was taken, I ran to the closest house after the guy left and pounded on a guy's door, and he opened the door, and he was able to get me to a hospital, get through an ambulance.
Well, realize too, at this point, you were covered in blood. Too.
Yes, I was.
Yeah,
and the guy was scared to death that he was coming back.
Yeah.
Just stop for a second, just so that people get a perspective where the bullet wounds were. Where were you shot?
I was just getting that. I have a plastic plate in my head about this big, right back here. There was one shot right here. I have a scar from my ear down about 2 inches where I was shot, cracked my jaw. This up here just made a groove in my skull. Like I said, a plastic plate back here. I have my right shoulder blade has a gunshot wound in it, and then my left elbow. Each and every one of those gunshot wounds, if they'd have been an inch in either direction, would have done major damage. Not that I don't have issues, a little bit of issues still. Like right now, my shoulder's hurting me. But I was even being blessed and cared for by what I call my higher power, my God, to get me through this. You know, he made sure that I was still alive. And so I went to the hospital, and my family was brought in, and I was still very scared. The guy was still out there. So I remember somebody came in, I don't know if it was a newspaper or whatever, wanted to talk to me. And what I said was, I'm not leaving this place till they catch him. Well, they did. They caught him, and he is in a federal pen now. So I don't have big concerns about that
In
anymore.
Kansas, as a matter of fact, right?
Illinois.
Mm.
He was sent to Oregon prison. He tried to kill a guard. That's a federal offense. So they sent him to the Illinois federal pen. He was 26 years old when this happened. I was 18. He'll never see the light of day. He got life plus 20 years. He was an escaped convict from Walla Walla State Prison for grand theft auto, I believe. And then also when he escaped, he was let out on a work release before he'd been okayed. His several people that he was with on that work release escaped at the same time. And he killed an older couple, and all he got from them was a $35 wedding band. The gentleman was deaf and blind, and the woman had MS. He attempted to stab his aunt to get the gun that he shot me with, from what I understand. So he was not a nice guy. And so as time went on, I was scared. And the shot in the back of my head went into extra memory matter. So I believe I have certain things that I forget or get out of order because of that.
So you couldn't see for a while too either.
Oh yes, the pressure put pressure on the gunshot wound, put pressure on my optic nerve. So first for a week and a half, 2 weeks, I everything was a blur. And then when I got out of the hospital, my teacher was one of my teachers, one of my dear friend teachers, Joan Crosby, was the one who took me from the hospital to home. And that's when I found out that I had no depth perception, and all the telephone poles that we were passing were jumping in front of us. And I ended up riding all the way home like this. I couldn't see worth beans. And so from that, I moved on with life. I mean, I even went back to work for Taco Time, which everybody seems to be shocked, but it wasn't Taco Time's fault that this had happened to me, and I never blamed Taco Time. It was unfortunate that it was in a bad part of town in North Portland. And me being from Coos Bay, Oregon, little teeny town, I didn't know what a bad part of Portland was. And so time went on. I lived my life in fear in certain cases, but something that I had that got me through this was growing up in a church, because I got to hear all sorts of things about my God that I believe in, that I hold true to this day, that he was not going to let more happen to me than I could handle. And he never has. I have gone through the death of my first husband. I've lost my mom, my dad, my sister. Our grandparents lived with us. I lost them. My nephew from my sister, my youngest nephew, is mentally handicapped. And
Gone through 2 cancer scares. too.
and I've had 2 cancer scares, yes. So through that, what got me through most of it is, first, I believe in God. He is my higher power. But the second thing is I got involved with Al-Anon. I said earlier I was raised in an alcoholic home. Oh, I'm running long. I was raised in
You
an
go right
alcoholic
ahead.
home.
Don't cut short.
And at first I was taking other people because I didn't have a problem. And through sitting with them, because my husband had joined AA about 6 months after we got married. And he changed. And I liked his change. And I started seeing the flaws in myself. And when he started going through service work, he'd be befriending these people that were new in the program. And they had spouses that needed to know where to go. And so kind of because he was in AA, I had to go to an Al-Anon meeting or two for all these poor sick women that I was befriending.
Well, maybe want to tell the difference between the 2 groups.
Okay. AA is for the alcoholic, whereas Al-Anon is for the family of alcoholics. And it is not to fix the alcoholic. It's to fix the destruction in ourselves that has happened due to how we respond to what the alcoholic living.
Yeah.
And through that, forgot what I was saying. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Let me just ask you something, though. I do
Sure.
think that's important, and I'm we're going to run short on time, and I don't want to rush this. And I'm just going to ask the people who are tuned in, if you are able to stay, even if we go a few minutes extra, please do so, because I think this is inspiring, and I think it's important. But one of the things, and you talk about Al-Anon, you talk about your faith. And I remember encountering you. I don't remember how long after, but it was when you had returned to Adams, and I was graduated, but I had come back and was helping with some things in the theater department, et cetera. And I remember where I ran into you. It was outside of the C Wing. It was right outside. It was the first time that you and I had actually seen each other after what had happened to you. I'd tracked what had been going on. And what I remember in talking to you at the time, and a couple of people had mentioned, I think Corey Ann mentioned you coming back and just the strength. But obviously, there were things that you went through. And I guess we could spend a lot of time talking about that. One of the things that I wanted to kind of wrap up with is, when you look back now on the events that happened in 1975, both that night, those next days and weeks, and the intervening years, what do you think about most when you look back on what happened to you?
The thing that helped me the best was, I think of it now in the third person. It's like a movie I'm seeing. It's a story that was told to me many times that now I'm telling. I may have lived it, but by telling it as somebody looking at it, it removes me. I listened. There was a radio station that I talked to a couple months after, and you've heard the tape.
Yeah.
And I listened to it, and I listened to my Al-Anon talk from years later after that. And I still hear it as a third person. I've removed myself to the point that, for the most part, except for a shoulder hurt now and then, or memory lapse, that it's a story like Gulliver's Travels or Oliver or any of those others.
Yeah.
Do I think about it a lot? It affects me every day. It's in my mind all the
Sure.
time. My brother once asked me, he said, will you ever get to the point where this isn't affecting you, that you're not talking about it every day? I don't talk about it every day, but it's there. It's in my thoughts, whether I'm scratching the itch from the scar here or my shoulder hurting, or I bumped my head in the car. Oh, I turned into the Incredible Hulk when I bumped that plastic plate. So it is always there. But you said that we weren't going to be silly on this. Well, I got news for you. You got to be silly. My nickname is Leadhead and Bullet Brain. I told you that before. Two guys that I'd gone to church with came up, and when I was in the hospital, they're like, Jerry, are you okay? And they were whispering, and they were and normally they were all goofballs. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And then they were like, is there anything I can get you? And I said, yeah, bring back your sense of humor, because I can't deal with my pain and your response. And so one of them said, okay, Bullet Brain. And the other one said, you got it, Leadhead. And so, yes, there can be smiles and giggles afterwards.
I went down to visit her after, because I was up in Seattle at the time.
He was in college.
Well, yeah, Steve and I graduated at the same time.
They deserted me because we're all the same age.
Well, actually, Steve's a year older than us.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead. You had to go there, didn't you?
Not that I have to point that out necessarily, but yeah.
and he still has dark hair.
That's right. I do.
Human
That's right.
plural.
Thank you for at least balancing. But anyway, yeah, you started to say you came down to visit her.
I went down to visit her because during high school I wanted to date her, and she was not having any of it. So I left. So, but I went down to visit her after this happened, and I was surprised. I went over to her house, and her sister was there. Obviously, it's her sister's house and all, and she had a wig. She took a wig off and all these scars and whatever else. And her sister goes, "Yeah, we call her Spalding." And
Yes.
And I'm just kind of like, okay, that's fine. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, she kept her sense of humor.
Well,
that was one that was amazing to me is all the stuff that happened, is how much Jerry kept her sense of humor, kept her perspective, kept her faith, everything.
My friends and my family helped so much. I mean, my church from Goose Bay, the pastor flew up on an airplane.
As opposed to what else?
A duck.
Go away now. You can leave now.
You're the star. I'm just the guy that gets done.
The pastor flew up from Goose Bay, and boy, were his arms tired, right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And there were other funny things. When I got out of the hospital and went back to Goose Bay, I snuck into the backside of the church as the Sunday Money service is going on, and I heard a gentleman announced that I had passed away.
You didn't tell me this.
Well, I stood up. I said, I don't think so.
Wow.
Gene Neveu, I'll never forget him. And the look on his face, that just totally white when I'm stand up and I'm there. And so, there was lots of laughter because I needed that to get through it. I'm not a serious person, as Jay will attest.
And I will, from knowing you over the years.
There's
Well,
too much
listen,
seriousness.
I think that's a real key. And this is obviously maybe we need to have the two of you back, because there's a lot more to the experience and the experiences that you've both had. And, but unfortunately, I'm going to need to move on here, but I want to do a couple of things. I want to thank you both for being here, for sharing this story. Again, this was not to sensationalize what happened to you. Your story is your story. It's a part of your life, and we all have stories. And this wasn't to, single anything out, but it definitely provides an illustration of a level of trauma that can be debilitating for some people. Some people struggle to get on with life, and there are a variety of things that we could continue to talk about. But let me just say this. I appreciate both of you, not just for being here and sharing this. I appreciate as I'm connected with you through Facebook, and as we have had opportunity to share, and as you come on even here on an almost weekly basis, unless you're traveling, well, even sometimes when you're traveling, Jay even tunes in audio if he's bike riding. But I appreciate your perspectives on things. I just want to give you a huge thank you for being here today. And maybe we do continue this conversation. I think that there is a tremendous interest in this, and I think that we can learn a lot from each other as we go through this. So Jay and Jerry, thank you. God bless you. Have a great rest of your weekend. Hang tight in the green room if you can, and continue to watch the comments. But we're going to close things out here. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I want to share a couple of resources. Again, we've gone over, and I'm fine with that with a topic like this today. But we all, as I mentioned, we all have our own stories. We all have our own situations, and some people deal with things in the same way that Jerry and Jay have. Other people deal with things in other ways. Your way of dealing with things may require a different kind of support, a different kind of help, professional help even. And I wanted to share, we'll post some things on the Facebook page, but I wanted to share some resources. If you want to copy these down or just go back and look later, I'm going to put these on the Coffee Breaks Facebook page later, along with some other resources. But, there are a variety of things that bring trauma, that bring tragedy to our lives. These aren't even the only crisis hotlines available, the only resources available. This is just one example of some resources. But different types of crisis, different types of trauma, different types of tragedy. One of the things we didn't have time to get to, I was going to talk about, but we'll post again some resources, is the grief cycle. That we always think of that in terms of when someone dies, but that cycle is part of any type of tragedy or trauma that we deal with. And it's not just a simple thing. You go through that cycle if you're familiar with it, and then you're past it. As Jerry talked about, the things that she experienced are a part of her life. Even when you say, I've healed from a lot of this, it doesn't stop being something that occurred. And whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it is an abuse situation that you've gone through, whether it is depression, mental illness, other things that continue to revisit you, as I often do with things like this, I'm just going to say, please do not bottle it in. Please do not isolate yourself. Find the resources that you need in order to move past whatever traumas have affected you. And, I just think that it's important that we continue to be honest with each other. We've got to be transparent. We've got to, yes, integrate the sense of humor, but also find those people in your life with whom you can be transparent and honest and get the help. We all need it at different times, folks. This isn't something that's just for some people. It's for everybody. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for all the comments. I want to thank you for all the support. If you're still here, and I hope you still are, there's one other thing I want to share with you. I mentioned it last week, but we've got some things coming up. We're actually just a few weeks away, changing gears here a little bit at the end, to the 100th episode of Coffee Breaks with Steve. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. And we've got a special contest coming up, and I want to give you an opportunity to participate. So the 100th episode is on June 12th. As long as we stay on schedule. And there's a special contest. It's not our typical drawing that we've done at times in the past. This one you're going to have to enter if you want to participate. So I'm not going to assume that everybody who tunes in necessarily wants to do this. One lucky viewer is going to be selected to co-host that episode with me on June 12th. So if you want to enter, the information is here. Again, I will also post this on the Facebook site. But you can email me with the subject line 100th episode and include your name, your phone number, your email address. The deadline is May 25th to get your entries in. I'll remind you weekly. We'll put things up on the Facebook site. And the winner will be announced during Coffee Breaks with Steve on our May 29th episode, and then I'll follow up with that person and we'll prepare for what that co-hosting looks like. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And so if it's something that you would consider doing, think that you'd want to do, if you have questions about what's going to be involved before you enter and you want to reach out to me and get some more clarification, I'm glad to provide that. But I would like to see if there are some people out there who would be willing to consider joining me. You saw a few weeks ago, if you were tuned in, that Shalane was online with me and we did a little co-hosting thing and we're just sort of practicing with some of that. I'm not going to do that frequently, but I think just like having guests on, such as Jay and Jerry were on today, it's fun when we get more of a community built around this. And we've got some other special things coming up as well. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity to think about participating in that. And once again, we're going to, let you get on with your day. We've gone over today. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your attention. I know this was worthwhile. And once again, a special thank you to Jerry and Jay for being on here, for being transparent, for being vulnerable, and being brave in sharing the story, but the courage throughout the years to look at the things that have affected them in life and not ignore them, not shy away from them, but understand how they affect other parts of our life. I think that's important. So next week is our Mother's Day episode. So be watching for information about how we're going to acknowledge and recognize our moms. And until then, as I always do, I just want to remind you, find a way to make a difference in your world this week. And God bless you. Have a great week.